Okay, so this is part 2 of the worksheet that we were looking at from part 1, looking at fractions and also looking at the medical procedures. Should I accept or should I refuse fractions or the different types of medical treatments? We mentioned in the first post at this particular document, as we can see, if you can please start to look at it for what it is extremely dangerous for you as a person if you start to actually take in exactly what they're trying to say within the loaded language, because it is trying to get you to be as strict as you possibly can, even to the point of refusing treatments such as dialysis, dropping hints in there that, is this really? Can your conscience take this? Dialysis? Can it take a heart-lung machine? Can it? You know, this is contravening God's law in Deuteronomy, Leviticus 17. Please, you have to wake up. It's nothing to do with fractions. They even state in this document that there is nothing specific within the Bible talking about blood fractions. Absolutely right. There is also nothing specific within the Bible about blood transfusions. There really isn't. Using them to transfuse into the vein, red blood cells, oxygen to feed your organs when you're in a serious medical condition. There's nothing in the Bible talking about that whatsoever. What you've been told is a dogma which relates to animal blood, things sacrificed to idols, and animals for food. Once they have died, the blood goes into the ground because it belongs to the Creator. Those were the Mosaic laws, and they've been done away with. But please, we've talked about that a little bit in a previous video. This one we now need to look a little bit further, and I'm asking you to seriously consider this quote now from Raymond Franz in Search of Christian Freedom. I recommend strongly that any brother or sister that's thinking about the blood issue, or any other issues for that matter, to get hold of this book. You can order it online. I would strongly recommend it. In Search of Christian Freedom by Raymond Franz. It's also Crisis of Conscience was his first book. He was a member of the governing body, and when he writes, there is no vitriol in his language at all. He is extremely reasonable in what he is saying. And I'd like to just quote something here regarding fractions, and then we'll come very quickly back onto this particular very dangerous loaded document. Page 288, and I quote, "The new position since 2000 is arbitrary and out of harmony with the facts. For one, it is claimed that the Bible forbids taking in the primary components, but that fractions of them are tolerable since the Bible does not give details." That's taken from the Watchtower, June 15, 2000, page 30. June 15, 2004, page 30. "But since the Bible does not speak of primary components any more than it speaks about fractions, this argument is false. In fact, it would be more logical to tolerate even the so-called primary components and draw the line between them and whole blood. For another, one reason constantly used when forbidding medical use of blood is the claim that the only one use of blood was tolerable, that of using it for atonement on the altar. The blood, it is claimed, belongs to God. But that is conveniently forgotten when the use of blood fractions is pronounced tolerable. But it would hardly do to accept for any secular use what exclusively belongs to God, because that would be the same as using stolen property. A stolen car is a stolen car, and it would not make the theft more tolerable if the car is separated into primary components, say the motor, coach and the transmission, then separated further into fractions such as the carburetor, pistons, hood, doors and drive shaft. Only if the car is not stolen would one have the right to take it apart and use or sell it as small parts. And if the car is not stolen, all parts, both big and small, can properly be separated and used at will. So, if blood fractions can be tolerated, certainly the major components and even whole blood can. End of quote on that part. Now page 289, last paragraph. Quote, but there is more. The Watchtower June 15, 2000 and June 15, 2004 claims that blood fractions, like immunoglobulins, move from a pregnant woman's blood to the separate system of her fetus, and that some Christians may conclude that since blood fractions can pass to another person in this natural setting, they could accept a blood fraction derived from blood plasma or cells. The problem here is that not only can fractions, per the Society's definition, pass into another person in this natural setting, but primary components, according to their definition, can as well. Thus, modern blood banking and transfusion practices by Denise M. Harmering, quoted above, makes it very clear on this subject. It's blood. Now, going back to this document, I must stress again that you're being asked through fractions. If an orange is peeled off, what's left is an orange. If you segment it down, it's still an orange. It's not something else. Nobody would classify it as anything else but part of an orange. And the same can be said for fractionated blood. It's still blood. Now, if you can have part of the blood, you can have the whole of the blood. That is very clear. As the stolen car analogy is a very good one, because if you have a stolen car, then you can't take its parts, surely. If it really did belong to God, the blood, the human blood, then surely taking parts of the car, the blood, the fractions, would be wrong. But it isn't wrong, because they're saying it's tolerable. Because it was never, ever demanded in Scripture. There is no Scripture demanding that your blood, your human blood, be poured into the ground. It doesn't say that. Now, going through these fractions that we've got here, taking into mind what we've just been talking about, you've got plasma, red cells, white cells and platelets. Should I refuse them, or should I, okay, can I take them? Accept albumins or not? I mean, it's talking about albumin here, up to 4% of plasma. Well, that's debatable. That is really debatable. Some of the percentages that you're using here are very loaded, and they are quite misguided in the way that they're actually printing this stuff. To give you an idea of what we're talking about, immunoglobulins, up to 3% of plasma, they're protein fractions, and I quote, that may be used in some injections that fight viruses and diseases, such as diphtheria, tetanus, viral hepatitis and rabies. They also may guard against some medical conditions that threaten the life of a developing baby. We'll come on to that, and RH incompatibility at some other stage. What are we getting at here? In simple layman's terms, you walk on a rusty nail and the nail goes through your foot. You go to hospital, you have the nail removed. You then have to have it cleaned. And it's more than likely that the hospital will make sure that you have what's known as a tetanus jab. Now, a tetanus jab has fractions in it. Now, what they're saying here is, should I accept it or should I reject it? What do you think, brothers and sisters? And if you can accept a tetanus jab, why would you die of a tetanus jab for not having a tetanus jab? You wouldn't, would you? Not if you're sensible. But then we go on to other things like dialysis. If you're a haemophiliac, why on earth would you not take dialysis? Of course you would. Clotting factor. You're on the clotting factors, 2,500 units of blood to make clotting factor rate, and then you can accept that and you're standing in the congregation is fine, but if you want to donate it, you can't. and yet 2,500 units make up one treatment for a haemophiliac with clotting factor VIII. Now, what am I trying to say by that? You can have it, but you can't give it away. We've talked about this before. Now, some of the treatments involved in this, it's saying about dialysis. We're looking at epidural blood patches, plasmapheresis, hemodilution, cell salvage. All of these things, believe me, are acceptable because there is no Christian commandment telling you you can't have any of this. And yet it's so loaded with language that it fills you with doubt. It fills you with a conspiracy inside your own head. Well, maybe they're right. Does my Christian conscience allow me? Of course it should do. And I'll be forceful on this subject because this stuff is killing people and there's nothing in the scriptures telling you you can't. Lastly, throughout this whole so-called document on blood, talks of nothing about real hemorrhaging, the accidents that happen, a car accident, internal bleeding, external bleeding, that golden hour, or maybe 3 or 4 hours where you are bleeding to death and you need a blood transfusion to keep your organs alive. You need those red blood cells, the oxygen to feed round and keep your organs alive. Why would you refuse that treatment? Based on the fact that you're having blood in all its facets anyway. All of these fractions add up to 100% of whole blood in all their different factions. So why would you die for a cause when others are actually just taking the blood anyway? It is not Christian. It has nothing to do with the Mosaic law. It is dogma, pure and simple. And on this point about hemorrhaging, why isn't it mentioned in here? When the hospital liaison committee turn up at your bedside and they start quoting this tripe, what are you going to do? Oh, it's best if you die? But you can have blood. You can have the orange without the peel. Is that worth dying for? Please, brothers and sisters, I'm putting this out there, and you really do need to start thinking. This document got me out of this religion. It didn't stumble me out, it made me think. And I had to think long and hard. It took me 18 months to wake up to exactly what was going on in this document. And I realised that I belonged to a religion that was showing me things that weren't based on scripture, based on dogma, based on something that was indirectly to do with blood, animal blood. From an animal that dies, pours its blood into the ground, you eat the animal. But this is donated blood. The donator is alive. Jesus Christ wants you to stay alive. So, you're dying for nothing. You really are. Can't stress it enough. So the next time that hospital liaison committee come knocking at your door in the hospital ward, when you're desperate with your child there on a bed, or your husband or your wife, you need to stand firm. Pray about it and know full well there is nothing in scripture to lead you to your death on this. Absolutely nothing. There really isn't. Do your research. I'm encouraging you, please get out there and have a good look at this, and the next time it comes up in your Kingdom Hall and some brother stands up there on the platform, think about it and be more critical. Take it home and really dissect it, and when you do, the curtains will come open like this and you will start to see this tripe for what it is. Do not allow them to get to a position where they're letting you die, because they will let you die. Don't do it. Do not put your life at risk, and certainly do not put your children's lives at risk for a dogma. It is that serious. Please, this document and documents like it should be banned. Plain and simple. The next one I'm going to do is from another quote from Raymond Franz, and it's looking quite simply at an individual that died in an intelligent way through dogma. Thanks for now.